You know, dating, it feels like it's been around forever, right? But it's actually a pretty modern invention. So what happens when you take this super modern idea and apply some, well, ancient principles to it? Today, we're going to dive into a playbook for romance that comes from a really deep theological tradition. And let me tell you, its rules might not be what you expect.
And here's the thing, right off the bat, you hit this really interesting problem. If you go looking for the word dating in the Bible, well, you're not going to find it. It's just not there. The whole concept, at least how we think of it, is pretty new. So if there's no direct chapter and verse to follow, where in the world does this playbook even come from?
Well, since there's no ancient blueprint to copy, this approach does something else. It doesn't just invent a bunch of new rules out of thin air. Nope. Instead, it's all about applying timeless, foundational principles to the very modern world of dating.
And that whole framework really rests on three big pillars: wisdom, holiness, and stewardship. You can almost think of them like filters, right? Every decision, every conversation has to pass through them. And they're all designed to guide the relationship toward one very, very specific goal.
Which, of course, brings us to the why. Why go through all this trouble? Well, in this view, dating isn't just something you do for fun. It's not an end in itself. It has one single, super clear, and pretty serious purpose: to figure out if this is the person you can enter into what's called a covenant marriage with.
So you're probably asking, okay, what is a covenant marriage? It's a huge concept. It's way more than just a legal contract between two people. We're talking about a sacred, lifelong promise made before God. It's a bond that's meant to be absolutely permanent, totally exclusive, and it's even supposed to mirror the relationship between Christ and the church. And believe me, that one definition, it shapes every single thing that leads up to it.
So you can see how this sets up a really sharp contrast. On one hand, you've got dating with this covenant purpose. The focus is all on evaluation, on preparation for this huge lifelong goal. But on the other hand, you have what you might call recreational dating. And the goal there, it's more about fun, right now, present enjoyment, companionship, social experience. This framework basically says, look, these are two completely different things.
Okay, so if covenant marriage is the destination on the map, then what's the compass that gets you there? That's where this next set of core principles comes in. These are meant to be the true north for every single decision you make in the relationship.
And here are the 5 key points on that compass. First up, purity of affection, which is all about guarding your heart. Then there's purpose over pleasure, making sure the goal is discernment, not just having a good time. Third, and this is a big one we'll get into, is the unequal yoke, which boils down to a shared faith. Fourth is accountability. You're not in this alone. You bring family and community into it. And finally, number 5, self-sufficiency in Christ. This is the idea that a partner doesn't complete you, your completeness is found in God.
Now, that unequal yoke idea, it comes directly from this verse. And the image here is really powerful. Back in the day, a yoke was this heavy wooden beam that you'd put over 2 oxen to get them to plow a field together. But just imagine, what if one ox was way weaker or started pulling in a totally different direction? The whole thing would just fall apart, right? You wouldn't get anything done. That's the picture they're painting here.
So the logic goes like this. If two people are trying to build a life together, but they're headed in completely different spiritual directions, how can they possibly pull in the same direction? How can they build a life that honors God, which, remember, is the whole point of that covenant marriage? So from this perspective, making a deep, romantic investment in someone who doesn't share that core foundational belief, it's just seen as really unwise.
All right, so we've got the purpose, that's covenant marriage, and we've got the principles, our compass. But what does this actually look like in real life, day to day? How do you take all these big ideas and translate them from theory into actual practice?
Well, in practice, a huge piece of this puzzle is the role of the parents. They are not supposed to be bystanders just watching from the sidelines. No way. In this framework, they're seen as having a real spiritual responsibility to actively guide their kids' relationships, with wisdom, with accountability, and with solid instruction.
And that guidance usually follows 3 really important steps. Step 1, talking honestly about the purpose. Like, what is the why behind this relationship? Is marriage even a realistic possibility down the road? Step 2, establishing boundaries. And we're talking clear, sometimes strict rules for both physical and emotional intimacy. And step 3, fostering spiritual growth. Is this relationship actually helping both people grow closer to God, or is it just a big distraction?
So, to keep all of this on track, there's a whole set of guardrails, basically. This is the accountability part. We're talking about things like strict physical boundaries for sure, but also guarding against getting emotionally tangled up too quickly. It often means prioritizing group dates over just one-on-one time, and being super transparent with parents and even the wider church community. Who, what, where, when. The whole idea is to create an environment that starves temptation and feeds support.
And at the end of the day, all these rules, all these principles, they aren't just rules for the sake of rules. The real goal, the big picture, is all about shaping character. It's about cultivating wisdom and holiness and a sense of purpose. It's all part of the prep work for that future covenant marriage.
So that really leaves us with a final big question to think about. This whole framework, it treats dating as this really serious, intentional time of preparation. It's not casual, it's not recreation. And that is a world away from a lot of modern ideas about romance, isn't it? So here's the question to chew on. How does this superstructured, purpose-driven view challenge your assumptions about what dating is all about?